Hello, everyone. Let me see if I can start my video. Yes. Hi, Angela. Hi, Sabrina. Welcome,
Hello,
welcome.
Ray.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. Thanks for joining us. Cute cat.
Hmm.
Can you see everyone?
No, I'm about to put it in gallery view now, but I'm not seeing anyone.
Let's see. Okay. I, I click start video. Let me try. Okay. There I am.
Okay, good.
And remember, we're gonna be putting this on YouTube. So if you wanted to be anonymous, you could mute yourself and kill your camera.
All right.
But it's up to you.
I mean, I can also just say stop my video.
Yeah. Yeah, I can turn. Um, I can mute. I can. No one is muted right now. I did not unmute anyone. Everybody came in unmuted, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I could mute you. Um, okay, let's give 801. Probably going to be a couple more people
Okay.
joining us.
But the other person doesn't want her video to show, or does she not know it's not off?
She's
I mean,
never.
she doesn't have to put it on, but I see that there are 3 people on, but I only see 2.
Yes, she hasn't
So
been.
yeah. So I just looked and it says that her video is off. So.
Yeah, that's the way she's been. That's the way she was the last. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I'm easy. Whatever they want to do.
Yeah. I started to listen to one this afternoon, but I'm in the middle of doing taxes, so
Ah,
I'll probably Sunday afternoon catch up on the last 2 videos of yours on YouTube.
yeah. Thanks. You're good. Your taxes are always fun. Your logo is MA, like mature audiences only.
What? My logo is
Yes,
what?
it's MA. Ms. AC, and I guess it Zoom abbreviated
Yeah.
to MA.
Miss Adjua Claudette.
Yeah, but I mean, so it looks like a movie rating.
Right.
MA.
Right. I like that. Okay.
All right. Okay. Let's. How do I know if there's people in the waiting room?
I think you have to look for the waiting room. The participants are I think the ones that you've already admitted to.
Yeah. When you guys popped up,
Meeting.
it told me I had 2 people in the waiting room, so I clicked admit all. Bum, 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 bum. Participants. I don't. All right. So if they join, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and put it on. Everybody is muted. Well, I'm gonna mute you, and because I'm gonna start just so that the sound quality is better, so we don't pick up random noises. So you're muted, and Sabrina is muted. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. I'm gonna put it on speaker view. Speaker view. I don't want. Bum, 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 bum. What is going on? You're muted.
I'll put you on speaker view for me.
Okay, all right. So everybody's muted but me. So if I put it on speaker view, it keeps going over to Claudette for some reason. I'm gonna click myself. All right. Okay. All right. So welcome to Friday Night Zoom. We are broadcasting live from the beautiful island of St. Croix in the Caribbean. How great is that? How fun is that? So I want to thank you guys for coming, and um, I wanted to talk a bit about why am I doing this? What is the purpose of this? And, really, the main reason I started doing this was because I was seeing that everyone was getting discouraged and deflated and defeated and depleted by what all that's going on. I mean, we've got a lot on our plate right now. We've got the pandemic, and you have to stay home. You can't go anywhere. When you do go someplace, you have to wear a mask, which is not always a lot of fun. People are getting isolated from each other, so they're losing that human contact. Then you've got the consequential economic effects of a lot of people are struggling financially because of the effect of the pandemic on business and the economy. People are working reduced hours or not working at all. And then, we had the political situation, which for a lot of people is a lot better now. I noticed that sleep was a trending term on Twitter. The algorithm on Twitter picked up sleep because it kept showing up in posts. It was a trending term. Sleep as in finally able to get a good night's sleep. So for most people, the political situation has improved, but there's still a lot of stuff up in the air about all that. We're not, quite out of the woods yet. But, really all of that, I mean, it's new and different and more difficult than it has been, but in a sense, nothing has changed because people generally are not happy. You may have noticed. And the Buddhist term for it is dukkha, which is usually translated as suffering, but a better translation for dukkha would be unsatisfactoriness, because the egoic mode of existence is generally unsatisfactory. Even if you don't have a pandemic, even if things are relatively normal, most people have a sense of unsatisfactoriness in their lives because you're always trying to get to a place where things are working well in your life. And when you get there, it never lasts. And then things start going badly again. And then you're trying to get out of that. There's always a sense of never quite making it, never quite getting there. Something is always not quite right. So it's dukkha, it's unsatisfactoriness. And even the Christian term sin, which is 16th century English word for when they translated the Bible from Greek and Hebrew into English, they used the word sin, which is an archery term, and it means missing the mark. In other words, not quite right, not quite making it. Something is off. You're off the mark. You're not, it's off. So there's a sense of both words, dukkha and sin, both. So therefore, both religions, Buddhism and Christianity, give you a sense of it's not quite right. It doesn't quite work. It's never, you can't ever quite get there. And so there's a general feeling of unhappiness, which actually is created by the ego. The egoic mind generates, you have within your mind something that is continually generating unhappiness. And so this sense of not quite rightness, of dissatisfaction, of missing the mark, of unhappiness, it really is just using our current situation where we have so much on our plates as just an excuse, really. It's like now you feel like you're really justified in being unhappy. You can point to the pandemic and the economic collapse and the crazy politics and all the stress and the strain and the tension and everything that you have on your plate as ample reason for why you should not be happy. So what I'm proposing or suggesting is that even though I am doing this in response to how depleted and defeated and deflated people have been lately, there's also an underlying spiritual point to it, because in addressing the current situation and how off the mark we all feel around it, it's the same answer for addressing the general situation of the general human condition of how off the mark we all feel around everything. Well, anyway, we didn't need the pandemic and everything else to be unhappy. We have been unhappy. Wow. We have been, I'm moving in slow motion on the screen. We have been unhappy prior to the pandemic and prior to the economic collapse and prior to the political situation. It's just more obvious now. And spirituality, meditation, religion in general, the reason it exists, the purpose of it, the point of it is to offer a suggested solution to the human condition of unsatisfactoriness or missing the mark. But there's a problem. When you are trying to get happiness, you are beginning from the point of view that you are not happy now. So you're practicing the method of unhappiness. You are engaged in activities which confirm that you are not happy now. And you can't get to happiness by practicing the methods of unhappiness. And it's the same thing with spiritual seeking. Generally, the spiritual path, what the seeker is seeking is oneness with God, union with God. That's what yoga means, union. And again, you're beginning from the standpoint that you are not one with God now. And in fact, that whole seeking energy is coming from the ego, which exists. The ego is not an entity or a noun. It's really more of a verb. It's a doing. It's an active separation from God. And so that seeking energy that's coming from the ego cannot possibly find union with God. So when I, just, I got to give the standard caveat here. When I talk about oneness using language, language is based in words, which are based in thoughts, which are dualistic, inherently dualistic. So whenever I use language, I'm using something that is inherently dualistic. And I'm using it to talk about oneness. So right away, you're going to run into problems and paradoxes. So what I say can never be 100% accurate. You have to stay loose mentally and just take it as a pointer. It's like pointing the way, but don't mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon. So with that standard caveat, I'll continue. So you are seeking oneness with the absolute, but there is only oneness, and you are already that. You are already one with the absolute. And you could think of it as you wanted to experience duality. So you closed your eyes and pretended that the absolute was gone and that you were a separate being, separate from the absolute. And so now, as that separate being, you feel unhappy, you feel dissatisfied, you feel that something is off the mark because there's a part of you that remembers what it was like when you were one with the absolute. So you want to return to that oneness. I mean, at first people start out, they try to solve the problem by acquiring things, getting status in the world and success and material things. And then eventually that doesn't satisfy them, that doesn't work. And then they might try therapy for a while, and then that doesn't work. And eventually they begin to seek a return to oneness with the absolute. But what is it that is seeking that? What's seeking that is the egoic mind structure that created the illusion of separation in the first place. There is no separation. You are happy now. You are one with God now. You are simply pretending not to be. So you can never get there because you are already there. You can never become that because you are already that. You can't achieve it because the seeking energy that is seeking to achieve oneness with the absolute is the very energy, the egoic energy, that created duality and separation in the first place. It wants to be separated. So then you are this seeking energy, this egoic mind, this, which is the sense of self that we talked about the first two meetings, this sense of self, this contracted energy, uses your search for oneness as a way to keep you from ever achieving oneness. It becomes a fence, a wall between you and oneness. And so one possible purpose of the spiritual path is to simply get you so exhausted with trying and trying and trying until you finally just collapse in exhaustion and totally give up, and then grace can happen. You totally give up trying to make it happen, trying to get to the absolute, trying to get to oneness. And that when that happens, the egoic seeking energy can stop for a moment. And when it's not running, you're not running the illusion on yourself. You're not running the programming, the hallucination. You wake up, even if only for a moment, and then you get this, for most people, it's like a momentary experience of oneness. And so, but then, almost immediately the egoic seeking energy starts up again, but you got that glimpse. And so for many people, that initial glimpse gives them a hope and an indication of what's possible. And so they keep going. And this egoic, this contracted energy that is you creating duality for yourself is it well, like I said, last week, I think it doesn't really exist. It's a thought. And I talked last week about, or it might have been the week before, but I talked about how the Buddhists would say that it has no suchness, that you can have a thought of a glass of water and you can have a physical glass of water. And a thought of a glass of water is real in as much as thoughts are real things. I mean, they exist, you do have thoughts. But if you're thirsty, you can think about a glass of water all day long and it's not going to help. But then if you pick up a physical glass of water and drink it, that's a completely different experience from the thought of a glass of water. And you can pick up a physical glass of water and drink the water without ever once having the thought glass or water. I mean, you can do that. So the thought is different from the reality. And so most things that you think about, you can point to something that actually exists. But the ego, when you think about yourself, when you think about I, that you can't really point to anything that it represents or that actually exists. And we talked last week about how the tendency is to, even though people know they aren't their body, whenever you think an I thought, like I want, or I need, or I like, or I don't like, or I have to have. You feel a physical sensation in your body. And that's because of early childhood conditioning, where you associated first your name when your parents called your name, and then eventually you realize that the word the I thought represented your name, which represented you. And so you associate a physical contraction of the body with this I thought. And so when you engage in the egoic mind, the I thought, you feel a physical sensation in your body, so that subconsciously you tend to associate the body with the ego. Even though on an intellectual level, most people realize, that I am not my body any more than I'm my shirt or my shoes or my job title. My body is something I have. My thoughts are something I have. My emotions are something I have. So I am whatever is having all of that. So I am not my body. But so that's what they know on a conceptual, intellectual level. But in real life existence, since the I contraction is felt as a physical sensation in the body, and it's on a kind of in a subliminal way, people just assume they are their body. They behave as if they think they are their body. But that's not really true. And so what is true is that the egoic I does not really exist. It's simply a collection of thoughts, and it has no suchness. Just like the thought of a glass of water has no suchness. It's not the same as a physical glass of water. The egoic I thought um, is not the same as who you really are. So this egoic I thought is the seeking energy that closes its eyes and pretends that the absolute is gone, and that you are separate from the absolute. And this generates unhappiness, because you are beginning from the point of view of I'm separate from the absolute. I am separate from all that is. I'm separate from other people. There is only separation. And then everything that follows from that, the belief in separation brings about the belief in pain, suffering, death, failure, lack, limitation. And that stance towards life, towards the universe, towards yourself and other people, and your relationships with all that is, people, conditions, situations, your relationships become antagonistic and filled with conflict, and that generates more unhappiness. But there's another way of experiencing life, which is to realize that you are already one with all that is, that there is only oneness, that there is only conscious energy manifesting as you, the people around you, the world, the car across the street. This bell is the conscious energy being a bell. I am the conscious energy being Ray. Whatever you can point to is the conscious, it's all one. The person, the individual person does not actually exist. You are that conscious energy. And so the seeking, the energy of seeking is unfounded and misplaced, and it will only mislead you. And one way of coming to a deeper experiential understanding of what I'm talking about is when we do a meditation of experiencing the spaciousness that arises when the egoic mind is put on hold. And then we experience the contracted energy that arises when the egoic mind is activated. And then we go back and forth between those two conditions so you can contrast and compare. And I think it's very useful to experience both, because we usually we stay stuck in the one almost all the time, and we rarely get to experience the other. And if we do experience the other, it's like this, amazing experience that only lasts a couple of seconds, and it quickly becomes a memory. And we talk about this great experience that we had many years ago. So this is something that this is Sabrina. This is the same experience, the same meditation we did last week, because this is I recommended last week that we do this every day and build up skill in it, because going back and forth between the two states and comparing and contrasting, just having them side by side in your experience can be very, very enlightening. No, it's just the screen is blinking. Is the light blinking? Okay, you want to slow it down? Thank you. So, right. So we're going to do a meditation we'll begin with our eyes closed, and we also open our eyes during the meditation, but we'll start with our eyes closed. So let's get into, a good meditation posture is simply one where you're comfortable enough to forget about your body, but not so comfortable you fall asleep. You can, if full lotus thing is your thing, go for it. If you need to lie down, do that. If just sitting up in a comfortable chair, usually it's better not to cross your leg. Well, if from the standpoint of the energy body, if you cross your legs at the knees, that cuts off the flow of energy. If you cross your legs at the ankles, that actually helps the energy to stay in your body and keep recirculating. So if you're going to cross something, cross your ankles, or otherwise have your feet flat on the floor and just get comfortable. And we'll close our eyes and we'll take a few deep breaths and just allow ourselves to kind of settle in. Settle into your body. Withdraw your attention from what is going on around you and just let your attention go down into your body. And now you're looking in your body for any areas of tension, any place where the energy is contracted. Just find some place in your body where you are feeling tension or stress. And you release that tension or stress. Sometimes you might have to move, like maybe rotate your ankle, flex your foot a little bit to get it to release. Sometimes you might be able to release it simply by placing your awareness on the tension and willing it to dissolve. So wherever you feel tension, find a place and release the tension. And when that tension releases, notice what arises in its place. In that spot in your body where there was tension, when the tension is gone, feel into what arises in its place. What's there now? And there's a kind of openness, a kind of spaciousness. And so you move now to someplace else, the next place in your body where you find tension or stress or contracted energy. Most of these spots of tension, you don't really notice them unless you look for them. And then once you look for them, you find them. And once you place your awareness on them, they're actually pretty easy to get rid of. They usually, people carry tension around in their bodies mainly because they're not even, they don't notice it. It happens, you do it, but you don't realize you're doing it. You don't notice it. So just noticing is 90% of releasing it. So just find, and you can do this systematically. Some people like to just methodically go through the body. I like go for the biggest ones first, and I figure whichever is the most noticeable, the one that gets my attention first, that's the biggest one. So I go for that first. And then the second biggest one, however you do it, you're looking through your body for tension. And then when you find it, you release it. And when it releases, notice what arises in its place. When that tension is gone, what do you find in that area of your body? And you notice that when the contraction ceases, there's an expansion and an openness. A spaciousness. That arises in its place. And you go through your body again, looking for any tension, any stress, any contraction. Maybe take a few deep breaths. Release the contraction. Release the tension. Allow the spaciousness to arise in its place. And continue until you have found and released all the spots of tension. And allowed spaciousness to take their place. And now you allow all of these areas of spaciousness to join together. All the different spots of spaciousness that have opened up when you release the tension now become one. They join together so that your entire body becomes almost hollow, as it were. And you feel this spaciousness throughout your entire body. And now we take a few minutes and we rest in this profound spaciousness. And notice how the mind slows down or even stops completely when you're resting in this spaciousness. The egoic sense of self doesn't really exist. It's a collection of thoughts. It's a constellation of thoughts. And it creates the contraction, the contracted energy field that you feel and associate with yourself. And so when you are not experiencing that contracted energy field, the mind, the egoic thought structure, the never ending voice, the voice in the head that never stops talking, slows down or ceases altogether because the two go hand in hand. This spaciousness is the experience of your true nature prior to the creation of the egoic thought structure. And so now, but to compare and contrast, we're going to intentionally activate the egoic thought structure. And we do that by saying either out loud or to yourself. I'll say it out loud because we're not mind readers. But we say with conviction, like we really believe it. I, I, me, 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 I, 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 me, me, me. I need, I need, I need, I want, I want, I want, I like, I like, I like, I don't like, I don't like, I don't like, I don't want that, I don't need that, I don't like that. We're deliberately generating the contracted energy field by activating the I thought structure. And so now feel how this feels in your body. Feel the contraction, the tension, the stress. Feel the result of the I, the egoic I. These are the two modes of being. The one is truth, the other illusory. Now, go through let's go through our body again and find the stress points. And release them. Find the spots of tension and allow them to dissolve. And again, people think meditation is about not moving, but if you need to like flex your foot or rotate your wrist or move your arm or um, move your head around and stretch your neck or whatever to release the tension, that's perfectly okay. You're not doing it wrong. The point is to release the stress point or the tension and whatever works. And then when you release that tension, notice the spaciousness that arises in its place, the emptiness. And move on to the next place. Release the tension, allow the spaciousness to arise in its place. Move on to the next place. Release the tension. Notice what arises in its place. and move on to the next spot. Wherever the tension is, place your awareness upon it. And in becoming aware of it, now you can release it and relax it and allow the spaciousness to arise in its place. And now we'll take a few minutes and everyone to allow everyone time to find all the spots of tension. Place your awareness there, release and relax it, and notice the spaciousness that arises in its place. So I'm going to remain silent while we all complete that. And now we allow all those points of spaciousness to join together so that our entire body becomes hollow. We experience spaciousness from head to toe within our body. And now we're going to rest in this profound spaciousness. And now slowly open your eyes and look around your room in a meditative way. That is, without naming or labeling things. You simply look around your room and seeing happens, but there's no mental commentary running. There's no egoic mind chatter, naming and labeling and describing and judging and evaluating and thinking of the history of this thing or that thing. And so you simply look around your room in a meditative way. And this is to show you that you don't have to think of meditation or spirituality as like something special and separate and different and apart from your regular life, where you can only have peace and calm when your eyes are closed and you're sitting on your cushion, your meditation cushion. You can have this peace and spaciousness and seeing without commentary, with your eyes open in your everyday regular life. And you notice how much the thoughts slow down. And when you practice this on a daily basis, and you can go, last week we flipped back and forth, I think 3 times. Today we did it twice. You can flip back and forth however many times you want, however much time you have time for, however many times you have time for. But you just get to where you're comparing the 2 states of being, and you begin to realize which one is truth and which one is illusion. And you begin to, what eventually happens is, no matter how hard you try to make the I contraction come back, you get to the point where it doesn't come back. No matter how many times you say I, me, I want, I need, the contraction does not arise again. And that will show you that who you are in reality, your true essential nature, is not this contraction. When you spent so many years of your life living as this contraction, you can't tell the difference between it and you. You think you are it. It seems to be you. You feel it in your body. But this practice that we did tonight can give you distance from that. You can, when you begin to live life not in that contraction, not in that contracted energy, not coming from that place, you realize that this is not necessary. I don't need to be this. This is not me. And that is, like I said last week, a major milestone on the spiritual path is freedom from identification with ego, from identification with the egoic mind, which is just an aspect of consciousness, of a constellation of an accretion of thoughts that you've been accumulating your whole life. And you just walk around with this huge bag of thoughts in your head, and it takes on a life of its own and becomes you. And when you do this practice, and it's kind of like if you ever took Psychology 101, they talk about figure and ground. They talk about it's the whole thing about on perception. They talk about perception, and they talk about how the mind will take something and put it in the foreground and relegate something else to the background, and it's almost like a choice. And so this is normally we are conditioned, we're trained by our upbringing, parents, society, school teachers, culture, to put the egoic mind chatter in the foreground and everything else gets relegated to the background. And so this exercise helps you to realize you don't have to do that. The egoic mind chatter can be relegated to the background, and the stillness, the spaciousness, and the peace can be brought into the foreground. And you can live your life from that position. And that's really just change. It's becoming consciously aware of how you are, your conscious, what your consciousness is projecting into your reality, and having some exercising some control over that. So I just encourage you to practice this as often as you can, and switch back and forth between the two. And then, not just confine it to in the morning or evening when you're doing your regular standard meditation. You want to be able to take this out into the real world, into your real life. Your life is not just on the meditation cushion. And so out in the real world, in your real life, you switch back and forth and look at what happens. You will see when the energy shifts, the world out there, which is not really out there, but you think it's out there, but it's really just a projection of your own consciousness. And when you shift the energy within yourself, the world out there will change in response. And when that happens a couple of times, you will be, that's when you can intellectually understand the idea of I'm projecting things and creating my reality. But when things actually change, because you're changing how you are, what it is that you're bringing to the foreground and what it is that you're relegating to the background, when you see the world respond and change because of that, that's getting the idea of everything being a projection of consciousness on a whole nother level. You don't just think it, now you know. Okay, so that's all I have for tonight. Let me see if there are any questions. I'm going to open up the chat. I'm going to type hi. Hopefully everyone will see this from me. Yes. So you can, if you want to ask a question, I think you can unmute yourselves. Do I have to unmute you? I don't want to unmute you if you don't want to be unmuted. Let's see. Okay, it's okay. No, so Andrew, you are not muted, right?
Right,
Okay.
right. Yeah, I took off my mic.
Okay. Well, so yeah, I mean, if anyone has questions, I'm happy to. It doesn't have to be about anything we talked about tonight either. It could be something from the last week or the week before, or just something you're wondering about in general.
No, it's
Or you can type in the chat. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
It's just good to hear kind of the composite that, shapes it all together.
Yeah,
So it's really helpful. It's really helpful. Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you for that, because that's been one of my things is you get bits and pieces. And
Right.
it took it's like when all the pieces finally clicked into place for me, I was like, well, why didn't anybody ever just give it to me all at once? Like, yeah, it's
Right.
true. It's true. And part of it is like the breathing. I think so many people go at it from the standpoint of trying to, kill their ego. And then which doesn't really work, because it's like it's the ego that's trying to
Yeah.
kill the ego.
Right.
When they do finally get to somehow or another, in spite of themselves, manage to go beyond ego, then they all almost every one of them, Adi Shanti, Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, they all talk about how this contracted energy got released. And Adi Shanti talks about how this energetic work went on for 2 years after his enlightenment, and that it was not always pleasant. He said it felt like somebody was in his brain rewiring things. But because I'm doing the breath work, which is working with energy, I was focused. And remember, I'm sure you've heard me say at least once, my spirituality is the energy of love, 100% unconditional love flowing through you without restriction. Yes or no. If no, find the block and get rid of it, or release it, or integrate it, or do whatever you need to do. So, because I began by you start out like releasing superficial things, like procrastination, or always getting into car accidents, or um, uh, um, I'm not good enough. All these basic personal laws that people have and they have. So you work on that as a false belief, a false limiting belief. But when you deal with it, there's always an associated contracted energy that gets released. And I got to the point where I was like the theory of breath work is it's like peeling an onion. And I began to wonder, like, how many layers does this onion have? How long do we have to keep doing this? Because I'm looking at people that have been doing this 10, 20, 30 years longer than I have, and they still have work on themselves to do. And they'd be the first ones to tell you that. And then I'm thinking, and they would tell me, well, you're peeling layers of onion that you've been accumulating all your life. And then they would talk, but they also say that that past lives are a thing, because people will remember their past lives during a breathwork session. All right, so if past lives are a thing, how many hundreds or perhaps even thousands of past lives have you had? So how many layers of the onion is that? So I'm like, this could take a long time. So I thought, but they also teach that thoughts are hierarchical, and that the more abstract a thought is, the more thoughts are in its control. And so I just came to the obvious conclusion. Well, the most abstract thought must be the ego, and it must have a contracted energy field associated with it. So if you could go straight to that energetic contraction and release it, you could peel the onion every layer at once, or instead of peeling the onion, you cut the ego down at its truth. And so because I've been working on the energy for so long, when the ego got cut down at its root, I didn't have to go through that 2-year process of having my brain rewired. So I was thinking, if Adi Shanti had only done a little bit of breath work along the way, it might have not been so unpleasant for him.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this energy, it's two in one. It's the thought structure and it's the energetic contraction. You want to work on both. I think it's better to work on both at the same time. So that's why I got all the pieces to come together like that, because the experiencing it energetically kind of made it put the pieces together, because it's like talking and thinking and conceptualizing about it is one thing, but experiencing it like in your body in real time, it makes it where you are able to understand. It puts the pieces together. The jigsaw, it's like the puzzle just fell into place. Wow, I really went off on a tangent there, didn't I?
All right.
Thanks, Sabrina. All right.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Are we done? Anything else? Any other questions? All right. Tell people we had there should have been um hope there were um there was at least one other person that really was planning to be here, so she must have had technical difficulties, and a couple of other people that
Okay.
but we had two people tonight. Last week we had three. The first week we had one. So this is our third
Okay.
meeting.
Well, the other thing too is, WAPA did its rolling outages thing today,
Oh,
this evening, because my power went off about maybe 5:20 and didn't come on till almost 7.
okay. It was flickering here.
Yeah. So,
I was
it may have happened in other parts of the island too.
oh,
But thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to go on YouTube and watch the last two so I can be right in step.
okay,
Okay.
cool. Well, we'll
All
see
right.
you next Friday. And
Yes, you definitely will. Good
cool.
night.
All right, good night.
Take care. Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
End for all. End meeting for all.